Breaking Points had a really hostile video with Slotkin. No kidding. Oh, hold your horses. I like that. Crystal and Sagar grilled Dem Senate on Epstein's Iran Israel. Slotkin's the deep state ghoul they're trying to pitch up as like the next generation of, you know, Schumer types, right?
Joining us now is Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan. Senator, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Crazy that she would agree to do this, by the way. Crazy that she would agree to do this.
For having me.
We have a very limited amount of time. This is
I'm not going to watch the whole thing, probably, but been a while since I've watched a Breaking Point video. They don't DMCA, right? Hey, to my good friends Crystal and Sagar, people with whom I have never disagreed and always been very kind to. Thank you for this blessed feast content. Yum yum. Which senator? Melissa Slotkin, junior senator, just got elected. Despite being centrist, got elected by a higher margin in Michigan than Kamala Harris did. Like, she outperformed Michigan, or Kamala Harris in Michigan in 2024. Oh, Alyssa, not Melissa. Sorry, Alyssa. I got it. I got most of the phenomes correct, okay?
Internet, so you're here, and it's important that we ask some of the questions that are animating some of the younger voters and others. I assume that's part of the reason that you're here. The first is about Jeffrey Epstein. It's a story that's really captured a lot of America's interest. So you're a former CIA officer. Do you think that Jeffrey Epstein had any connections to U.S. or Israeli intelligence agencies?
So, not that I've ever seen or heard.
That's a crazy opening pitch. Get right to it.
But there's No, I haven't asked. But, you know, this is like a solvable question because President Trump's CIA director, John Radcliffe, can answer this question, right? There is no shortage of people in this administration who can answer that question. I would be very surprised. I'm going to be honest. I know your views on it. I would be surprised.
Okay.
But I'm like a Middle East analyst. I was doing my time going after terrorist groups and militias in Iraq. And so I never saw it. I never heard anything about that. I, again, would be surprised, but there's an easy way to solve that problem.
Well, that's the question then. So in terms of, because I know you've expressed some concern about classified information, et cetera, in the past, would you be fine then with the full release of these Trump-Epstein files, even if they did reveal an intelligence connection?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, like, it's such a distraction from, in my mind, like what I really...
Oof. Okay, so I'm a little undecided on Slotkin, all right? I think she's an agent of the deep state. That much is obvious. Literal CIA agent, right? But what I'm curious of is how much is she following the waterline and how much is she setting it, you know? So there are people like Chuck Schumer, right? Chuck Schumer is the deep state. However, Chuck Schumer isn't just, you know, idly following a set of guidelines, principles, and consultant biases that he happens to subscribe to. He is an active agent of maintaining things, keeping them a certain way. You know, my job is to keep the left pro-Israel, right? He understands that, he understands what he's doing. He's not just responding to prompts, he's setting them. I'm interested because in her case, she's young. She's not old enough to have had the connections necessary to really like establish that kind of authority. I'm interested in seeing whether she follows the watermark or she tries to set it. Does that make any sense? Either way, deep state, etc., etc. But there is a possibility, however slim, that she sees the writing on the wall and shifts in a way that could be advantageous to us. And it would be advantageous for people like this woman, to acquiesce a little bit to left pressure. But will she? Well, let's watch the damn video.
Care about, which is helping people like live well in Michigan. Just get it over with and get it out. And this wasn't like my issue. It's still not the thing that wakes me up in the morning and I want to work on. But I think it's okay to say it's a full distraction now in Washington. Everyone's talking about it. So just unveil it, do whatever you need to do, answer the questions, and move past it.
Well, that's the last question then. So there's some accusations here from the Republicans on Epstein here, just about, you know, why didn't you care for over 4 years? I know you asked the question in 2020. You said, I don't care particularly about Bill Clinton, et cetera. I mean, that's somewhat understandable, but, you know, we do have like a person, very circumstances, let alone, you know, the sex trafficking organization, others. So, you know, why don't you answer that question? Like, why is this now is the time that you do care?
Yeah, I mean,
not
obviously,
particularly care.
It's horrible when you have a and someone who had a literal pyramid scheme of recruiting 14 and 15-year-old girls for illegal sex. I mean, it's horrible. At the time, I mean, I sort of saw it as like one of these horrible stories that comes out every 5 months, you know, about somebody. I think the Weinstein thing had happened. There weren't Michiganders, to my knowledge, who were involved, women, young girls who were involved. So I kind of saw it as like a horrible moment, but not particularly something that's like going to decide whether someone in my state can buy a house or get a good job. So to me, it was just like it wasn't like a strategic issue.
Got it.
Right?
This is not an entirely indefensible answer, I guess, if you're weighing her heart against a feather. It's stupid politically, but I also don't expect her to be very politically savvy because, again, junior senator, right? When people like Schumer or Pelosi say the Epstein files are distraction, I take that as malicious non-involvement on their part because they're both seasoned enough to know that this is a huge wedge you can drive against the Republicans. For someone like Slotkin, I think it's potentially a little more reasonable for her to sit there and say, well, it doesn't really affect Michiganders, right? It doesn't actually affect constituents in the day-to-day, so I wasn't focused on it. Why are you being so lenient towards her? Not being lenient. What I'm trying not to do is be reflexive because I still find her career interesting. I'm already positioned against her. Keep this in mind. When I say, oh, I think she's an agent of the deep state, I'm not being flippant, okay? But I think it's important you understand fairly. This is the difference between Marx and every other jackass who pointed out that the fact that factory owners owned everything and the workers owned nothing was evil, right? Marx took the time to sit down and try to figure out the underlying logic of how it all worked. I think it's important that people on the left do that.
Right, for me. And then now it just is like grown. And I think there is a difference between saying some rich guy or a former politician was named in those things versus the president of the United States. That to me is apples to oranges because one of them is leading the free world and one of them's
Marx
not. So
did
if his name is in there as it appears it is, just like deal with it and let's get on with it at this point. And my 10-year-old nephew understands that the president is trying to dodge, trying to distract, trying to talk about other things. He hates answering this question. Like, we get it. So it feels off to the average person, right? To a 10-year-old, they're like, did he do something, right? So just get through it, get it out, and let's move on to real, for me, like real economic issues.
So then if piece of legislation comes forward, you would vote for it to support the release of the files.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So then let's talk about future of the Democratic Party. I know that's something you've been interested in. Democratic approval hit an all-time low from the Wall Street Journal. At the same time, we've seen the rise more recently of some anti-establishment candidates, people like Zoran Mamdani. Give us some of your thoughts there about the future of the Democratic Party, and particularly in the context of Mamdani's victory in New York City.
Well, I guess as a good Midwesterner and Michigander, I'm never going to say that what happens in New York City represents all of America. Sorry, we're a big country, and I would never pretend to totally understand New York City politics. I didn't particularly understand Eric Adams. I didn't particularly understand, I genuinely, right? But I think the message and the hot take out of that election is actually not terribly dissimilar from what we heard in the November election when Trump won, right? Which is people are still focused on the cost of living and not being able to achieve what they thought they could achieve, right? And then number two, people are looking for a new generation of leadership. I don't think
I don't necessarily disagree with either of those takeaways.
It's hard to miss those hot takes. I can have plenty of disagreements with what I've heard Mr. Mamdani propose, and I do. But that message coming out of that election—
What do you disagree with?
Just, my family was a fourth generation hot dog business. Like, I am here because we live the American dream through capitalism. And so, like, a lot of free stuff, to me, is not the answer. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think that it actually fixes the underlying problem. But I can have those disagreements. I think this is I would be thrilled to have that conversation with him or anyone else about like, hey, we agree that there's an economic problem here. What we do to solve it.
Holy shit, this bitch. I'm operating on a different level to you guys. Unfortunately for you, you don't understand. The default deep state establishment Democrat line to Mamdani has been vague hand-wringing about his alleged anti-Semitism. She's engaging substantively, even if she's wrong. There's a difference here. That's the reason why I wanted to watch this. I wouldn't be as interested in an interview, a sit-down they did with Jeffries or whatever, you know? This is different. There's a different kind of engagement here. But hey, what's she saying about capitalism? Sure, me too. But there is a difference.
let's have that debate. And adults can debate and not like want to kill each other's children.
Well, let's talk then about leadership. So you just talked about that. We see a lot of that from our show. Some of the Democratic side of our audience is furious with Democratic leadership. I mean, do you still support Chuck Schumer's leadership here?
I'm giving you, hey, cut that down. Trying to eat the damn geckos. I'm just trying to make sure you guys aren't positioned the wrong way here, okay? Don't make me reflexively defend her. You have to properly understand the stuff you criticize, all right? I understand we've been having a fun old time calling, establishment Democrats, deep state, Republicans are all piles. And are these things true? Of course they are. But you need to be substantive and incisive with your criticisms here. She's a different case than a lot of these people. She's been positioned perhaps with more authority than most would expect from a junior senator. The fact that she was the one who gave the response to Trump's State of the Union, address some months back. It's very obvious there are people in power who want to front her as the new generation of centrist leadership. So I'm interested in the way she posits her responses. The fact that she avoided even mentioning anti-Semitism when asked about why she disagrees with Mamdani, that's interesting. Is it possible that it's an actual ideological disagreement? I mean, believe it or not, there are people who are ideologically capitalist. They do, in fact, constitute a majority of the population of this country. Again, it's not about defense. It's about understanding, okay? We're trapped in the torment nexus. We have to understand how it works to get out. It's one of the reasons I'm usually keen on pointing out the difference between Pelosi, Schumer, and Jeffries. And there are meaningful differences ideologically between these three, right? Between Biden and Obama. There are particularities to these people. And it's not always systemic, right? Or systematic. Oftentimes, it's just quirks of people's individual personalities. No matter how powerful institutions get, you can't quite override that, right? You know?
Give an interview in about a month.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I've now served in the Senate for 6 months, in the House before that. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have hard jobs, like herding cats. It's not fun. I've said for a very long time, long before I got into the Senate and long before President Biden dropped out, that we need a new generation of leadership. You can feel it in, and I think at this point, I mean, especially New York, right? You're looking at New York, it's like, I'd rather roll the dice with someone new than have like the warmed over leftovers that I've already known. So I think we have a problem with that across the board. And I think one of the things I can do as the youngest Democratic woman in the Senate, and I'm not young, I'm just young for the Senate, to be clear.
You're young for us.
Yeah. I mean, is push on that and try to give younger leaders a voice in this party in a very real way.
Yeah.
And to me, that's upward pressure. That pressure that you're talking about from the people is good.
So then shouldn't they endorse him? I mean, what kind of a message Schumer and Jeffries, shouldn't they endorse?
They're both from New York.
Mamdani, they're both New Yorkers.
Yeah.
And what kind of a message does it send if, like, I mean, this guy won the Democratic primary.
Yeah.
He is the Democratic nominee.
Yeah.
It was...
The way she talks screams of her being coached by DNC leadership. No. DNC consultants maybe, but not leadership. If she was being coached by people like Schumer, I don't think she'd be speaking this way. I disagree, actually. If anything, it seems to me like she's being positioned as the person who's going to ideologically replace Schumer. You know? You have a senator, centrist, strong connections to sort of establishment mentalities within the Democratic Party, but she doesn't talk the way he does.
Overwhelming if then the centrist leadership of the party said, we can't get behind him.
I mean, you just asked me before we started the exact same question about the Michigan Senate primary, and I'm like, Michigan Democrats don't get involved in primaries. We all are friends. So I can't speak to what they're doing. I think, I hope that...
That's very careful. It's very cordial. And she really likes to play up the Michiganer element, doesn't she? I mean, she's a senator. She's a national politician. Her votes represent the whole country. Obviously, a senator, they rep the state. But, if you're in the Senate, like, you're functionally, you're operating at a level where you affect the entire country. But she does like to play up this small-town Midwest girl bit, huh?
That they're meeting? I mean, if this person is...
They did.
Yeah, okay.
And Hakeem Jeffries still refused to endorse him. I mean, think about it from this context. Like, let's say in 2028, a more moderate figure wins the Democratic primary, and a bunch of progressives, AOC or whoever says, we're not backing, we don't agree with you. I feel like you would have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will say this. The way that this party works is when there's a coalition that sticks together. That's like a numbers issue. That's a data issue. And so I'm always going to be someone who's trying to find unity. That doesn't mean we all agree with each other. And I think I wasn't in the conversations where they met privately. What they debated, what they talked about, I don't know. But to me, we got to figure out what's common among all Democrats right now. And that's why I focus on the economy, because that is, to me, the cost of living and people not being able to achieve what their parents achieved is the existential issue of our time, is the unifying issue of like all the...
So she's an appeaser to the fascists. You motherfuckers aren't listening to a damn word she's saying. Are you? It frustrates me to no end. I put effort into trying to talk and learn about this stuff, and then I see all you people just rattling off Twitter points, okay? Pay the attention. It's more complicated than that. Yeah, we get it. You're woke. All of the social credit to your goddamn VGG username. Thank you. Pay attention.
Right wing, left wing, like Americans.
Oh, it's the Trump dance
I don't even
right
think
there.
it's a Democratic Party thing. And to me, that's where I spend my time, because I think 80% of my constituents in Michigan, that's where they live, is like, I just want to be able to go to Disneyland and take my kids the way my dad took me. So that's where I focus on.
She doesn't believe a word she's saying, dude. She's a politician. I'm not no shit. Yeah, they lie all the time, but how they lie is important. And also, what exactly were you identifying here as a dishonesty? Because some of the stuff she said here seems sensible enough to me. The idea of like a big tent coalition focusing on kitchen table issues. I don't necessarily agree with the framing, but it seems to me like something somebody could believe in earnest. You think that makes you clever, waving your hand and saying a politician lies? Congratulations. You're in the same boat as 99% of the population for all of human history, okay? Pay attention. Focus. We're probably going to be dealing with her for a long time, maybe decades. It's important that we get our understanding.
I'm happy to sit down with any leader. I can't speak to their particular decision to endorse or not. I'm not endorsing in my own.
Right, but just
primary.
yes, the last question on
but
the
he won the primary.
right. That's my question.
That's what's different.
in
By
your-
12
I'm sorry to
12
ask
points.
this. They have another election, though, yeah?
A general election.
general
Yeah.
election.
He's
But
the
it's-
Democratic nominee.
I see. I'm sorry. This is why I'm saying I don't follow New York politics. And I think you'd have to ask them. I don't know. I know that for me, whoever wins the Democratic primary in the state of Michigan for the Senate seat that's up, that's who I will endorse, regardless of who it is.
All right, that was my last question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it to Chris now.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'm actually a little curious, and forgive me if this is impolite. Like, I'm curious why you wanted to talk to us.
Ah.
Well, like,
Yeah.
we don't have actually a lot of senators, especially ones who have very different ideology than us,
Yeah, no kidding. A sitting senator? That is pretty crazy.
reach out. So I'm curious what your goal was and why you thought to come here.
Well, first of all, I think you have a good audience. I mean, right? If
We
you,
agree.
If you spoke to, if you
Now that was a lie.
appeal to like 4 friends on YouTube or whatever, then I probably wouldn't be here. But I think, to me, part of the problem is that people have kind of gone to their corners. And I live this, right? I live on my family farm in a town that voted heavily for Donald Trump. I've never won my town. I've never won my precinct. I've never won my neighbors. We get along, but I never won them, and I probably never will. So to me, I think that the people have gone to their corners, and like people who used to be able to talk about politics and disagree don't even get in the same room together. So I kind of like the idea of your show. Like, it was interesting to me when my team pitched me, right? We go through, and like, there's no hiding it. Lots of people are like, how do we evolve in this new space?
Yeah.
You know, like that's not you know, it's not that conversation isn't happening. It is, and I think that's good, and to the credit of lots of shows like yours.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think your show appealed to me as I was being pitched because you guys don't agree. And like, I am very focused. My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat. Like, Michiganders want to get back to a place where we can disagree on politics.
This might be a sincere ideological bent on her part, because I really do not think any Dem consultants would say, yeah, go on Breaking Points. Go on the show where the audience is frothing at the mouth to hang half of Capitol Hill, and they think the government's keeping alien files. You know? I do not think she would be consulted into doing this. You know? She has some coconuts to be on the show. Yes, she does. That is true. It's not easy. You're setting yourself up to be grilled by two people who have basically no filter and won't pre-screen questions with you. And I do trust that for these two. Whatever my disagreements with the show, certainly with Sauger, I do not think Crystal and Sauger would softball an interview and compromise their credibility in that respect. If you look at the comments, like half of them are just calling her a Jew. I'm sure. She's probably heavily media trained, though, like probably pretty good in it. Media training only gets you so far. Getting grilled by two intelligent people who have a deeply cynical attitude towards your job, no media training can make you good at that. No consultant would suggest that she do something like this. As a sitting senator, it's very interesting. She might actually believe what she's saying here. The idea, this ideological value of everyone getting together and being able to talk.
And not have it be so bitter.
So I hear you on the idea of you want to talk about the economics and the unifying and cost of living. And I think that ignores a big elephant in the room, especially when you're talking about even Zoran Mamdani. Mm-hmm. The reason Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer don't want to endorse him is because of his position on Israel. The single most viral clip that he had in that election actually wasn't about cost of living, even though that's what he wanted to make his campaign about. His opponents, Andrew Cuomo in particular, wanted to make it all about accusing him of anti-Semitism and attacking him for his views on Israel and Palestine. So the most viral moment from that entire campaign, I believe, was this moment on the debate stage. Guys, this is E1. Let me go ahead and play this for you, and then I want to get your reaction.
Probably
Mr.
seen this.
Mamdani. I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel? As mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
Incredible. Jesus Christ, man. I still can't believe it.
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
Now, this was considered very controversial when he said it, and I think the results are in at this point that he didn't win in spite of his position there. He won in part because of it, including, if you listen to Andrew Cuomo's numbers, he won a majority of Jewish voters inside of New York City. And so what I'm curious for your view on is, while, I would love to debate you on your healthcare policy. I think we need Medicare for all. You think public option, your housing policy, et cetera. I'm just being really real with you. I don't really hear what you say if you are still supporting a genocide in Gaza. And that's, for me, I'm speaking for myself, but I know there are millions of other people who feel the same, that you have to at least...
It really is the issue of our time. And it's not because it's more important than every other issue or should be the most important issue in the mind of every American or anything like that. It's because it's such an obvious yes-no question. It's like a barometer for your legitimacy on every other question, right? It wouldn't matter whether or not the death toll was 500, or 500,000 right now. It is such a straightforward yes and no answer. If you support what Israel's doing, then you're in crazy land. It's just it's the clearest, does the compass point north issue possible. And a majority of American politicians fail on it. Just straight off the bat,
cross this sort of moral threshold. And what it indicates to people, and I think part of why, Zoran won so many people in New York City, young people in particular, but Jewish New Yorkers, people across the board, is because it was a sign of, number one, okay, you're focused on New York City first and foremost.
Sure.
Number two, you're willing to take the heat on an issue that is really difficult for you, where you're being overtly smeared as an anti-Semite. And number three, there's no, entrenched interest that's going to control. You have a spine, you have principles, you're willing to stand up for something. And so, I'm curious for your reflections on that because of your voting record and where you've stood on this conflict.
Yeah, well, one of the proudest moments that I had in my last election, where I just won on the same ballot as Donald Trump, was that I won a majority of Jewish voters in Michigan. We have a large Jewish population. And I won Dearborn Heights, and Hamtramck, the 3 Muslim-dominated cities. Trump won...
Wait, does she still support Israel? Oh, yeah. She's offered some light criticisms, but yeah.
2 out of the 3. So I think the thing that I would push back on is the voters voters vote with their feet, right? We have a moment in an election where they get to decide. And there was no issue that was more difficult for me in this last, I would say 6 years, but certainly in this last election, other than this issue, because it's personal.
Why so tone deaf, gloating over her record? Because she understands that she can't answer this question straightforwardly because it would reveal, well, not reveal, it's already known. It would cement the fact that she supports Israel. So instead, she pretends that it's a question about getting like a broad consensus support. Obviously, that wasn't the question.
I'm a Middle East analyst by training. And so what I tried to do and why I think I managed to win both those communities is call balls and strikes literally up to this week on what's going on.
So let's talk a little bit more about that.
But I think it's important, right? If you're going to push on me, then I think like there's one of us that's had an election and had to appeal to my voters and win. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that Mr. Mamdani won. Or actually, I didn't know his name. I didn't know much about him until he won. But because I think this issue is motivating people in a very visceral and personal way.
Yeah.
But it's not the only issue that my voters in Michigan.
See, now this is Dem consulting brain right here. I'm willing to believe she's being sincere when she talks about the value of bipartisanship. This to me is consultant brain right here. You got to understand, okay? CIA operative, specialty in Middle Eastern foreign relations, right? Jesus Christ, can you imagine a person who's more cemented? Like this, it's the highest possible degree of direct coordination outside of Washington, you know?
Care about.
Of course.
And the online world is extremely focused on this, but that doesn't always represent the majority. And I think if I can push back, like if we're out on the road every day in Michigan when I'm there. In some communities, that issue is the number one issue, 100%. And like,
didn't some polling just come out saying that the number of Americans who support Israel is down to only 40%, and within the Democratic Party, it's some insane number, like 10% of Democrats support Israel? Notice how earlier, when it came to Epstein, she wasn't talking about issues that are politically popular or expedient. She was talking about issues that really matter. What is or isn't the distraction? But now that it comes to Israel, now she's like, well, you know, I'm actually very concerned about this, not from the ethical perspective of, you know, supporting or not supporting genocide, but rather like the fiddly, take a look at the margins of support on me, on such and such, you know?
I mean, up till this morning, right? Like people texting my phone and talking about a plan, some of the things we're working on. But I go outside the Detroit area, it's not in the top 40.
But Senator, it's not just a political issue, it's also a moral issue is what I'm trying to get to. So let's talk about those, you know, calling of balls and strikes, if you will. So first of all, do you accept that Israel has a policy of enforcing?
Oh, wow. Yeah, here we go. 32% in U.S. back Israel's military action. Only 32%. Only 32% support Israel's military action. Not Democrats. That's across the board. That is crazy. This just starts back on November 2023. Still way too much? Sure. Republican support has gone upwards. Democrat all the way down to 8%. Independents, 25%. Jesus. 8%. 8% support. Most every Democrat up there on Capitol Hill is laying their life down on the line to defend Israel. 8% support from the party. Why do Republicans care about Israel? They like it when brown people die, and Trump is currently the president. Unfavorable view of Benjamin Netanyahu. Skyrocketing. This is a good interview.
Worst famine and starvation in the Gaza Strip.
I think I literally put my name on a letter yesterday or last night that says like a policy of starvation, people are starting to starve. And in general, I mean, I served in places like Ramadi and Fallujah. I watched in 2004 and 2005, Al-Qaeda terrorists drag American citizens behind a vehicle until they died, right? Like horrible, and then string them up, like a lynching.
Okay.
We still had a responsibility to get aid into Fallujah, despite the fact that we were fighting Al-Qaeda cells in Fallujah. And I have been clear about that.
So this is a crime against humanity. Forced starvation is a crime against humanity.
The occupying power has a responsibility to get aid into the war zone, period.
So
by the law of war.
So in addition, do you accept that the Israeli plan, as reported by Haaretz, as discussed openly by ministers like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, as backed by the President of the United States, is forced ethnic cleansing?
I think we have, as recently as yesterday, the Prime Minister of Israel talking about forced migration into certain areas and then potentially out of the country. That is not legal. That is not on the...
You'll note that she's being very careful. This is the consultancy, very careful with the language. She doesn't answer yes or no. She said, well, this is happening, but she won't yes or no it.
On any international standards since World War II. And I've been clear about that. So I would ask for a little bit of an open mind.
Well, what I would ask is...
Open mind.
Listen, I'm a YouTuber. You know, I have my words, that's all I have.
Yeah.
But you're a United States Senator. Like you're not the president, but you have power. So what are you going to do? Because so far what we've seen, I mean, you voted for some of the aid that's been used to massacre children and innocents. You know, you have backed Israel, as far as I can tell, you know, from your voting record at almost every turn. You voted for a definition of anti-Semitism that would, you know, codify anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. You voted as a member of the House to sanction the ICC for indicting Benjamin Netanyahu, who you just admitted is a war criminal, you know, by your own words. So are you going to join Senator Angus King, Senator Bernie Sanders in saying no more aid to this country that is committing war crimes against innocent civilians?
She really is the, I think, like the arch evil or the final boss on this, because in my opinion, her support for Israel is motivated by pure realpolitik. There is no, she's not a Zionist, not ideologically, in my opinion. She doesn't have any moral involvement. She might even find Israel's actions genuinely detestable, but it's not what motivates her behavior. Her behavior is purely like American empire. Our contracts, our financial relationship, our standing. It would fit with her background. Why are people like this? There have always been people like this. Slotkin is a Zionist? Ideologically, I'm not so sure. Obviously, in practice, she is, but I think it's a means to a greater end. She's not like Biden, you know? I think that to her, this whole business is just a way of projecting American power. So does she think Israel is a big strategic advantage in the area? Yeah, of course.
I think the first thing, if you're asking about what to do with power, and I would offer that right now Democrats own nothing in Washington. So
don't play powerless with me. You're a United States Senator. There are things you can do.
In terms of who runs our foreign policy, I just think it's interesting, right?
You voted the way you voted, lady.
When Democrats were in charge.
There was a protest in Manhattan yesterday.
Okay. I think it's fair to say, just to be honest, that back and forth, like the number of protests that go on now versus before.
Well, they were part of your political coalition.
Well, not to mention, I mean, Senator Slotkin,
that's fair.
Obviously, I'm here.
Yeah.
I was very upset over the Biden administration policy. And as you can tell, I'm very upset over the Trump administration policy.
Yeah.
So let's deal not in strawman, but me and here and now.
Terms of so the tools that I have, the tools that we have in general, to me, the most important thing is a pressurized campaign to get aid into people who are starving. That to me is the number one, because that's the one is urgent and today. And that.
But will you cut off aid to Israel so long as they're committing crimes against humanity?
There is a difference between a weapon to protect a country from incoming missiles versus other type. Offensive and defensive weapons are different.
So would you?
She supported offensive weapons as well. Also, the push to get anti-Zionism reclassified as anti-Semitism in like academic settings and the such. Yeah, no, man. I guess to her, like the insistence on aid and ending starvation is probably just more of that, like she wishes that Israel wouldn't be so fucking crazy, that they shouldn't be uppity, essentially. Like she would prefer it if Israel just sat there as a military base and occasionally agitated the nearby Arab nations. You know, but it's disruptive and counterproductive for them to be engaged in this project of ethnic cleansing.
Support offensive weapons ban? Like, would you stop any offensive aid to Israel?
That certainly, to me, would be a place to look, but I'm not going to cut off a blanket next sale on a defensive weapon that comes through. No.
I also reject that because, for example, if Senator Slotkin, if you were asked to support defensive weapons for Iran, defensive weapons for Russia, you wouldn't back that.
No, but Iran, I mean, but
they're defensive. They're just protecting civilians, right?
Right.
So how is it different?
But because Israel's being shot at. I mean,
Well, so is Russia.
So is Iran.
Yeah.
So is Russia.
Ukraine's shooting at Russia right now.
I'm sorry. This is the difference between allies, partners, and adversaries.
Why is it
No.
an ally then? What are they doing right now that which makes it an ally?
I think allied relationships, just like Lithuania right now, like an allied relationship or a partner relationship is a long-standing relationship of information sharing and diplomacy. And that is, to me, it's not a like...
Israel is so fucking antagonistic to the United States, dude. It's so funny to go down this road when Israel is like the most belligerent ally. You know. But yeah, no, this is just like great American power stuff, right? This is just, you know, we have decided to prioritize Israel. We have business relations with them. We have contacts. We don't with Iran. We just don't have those relationships with Iran. So we have decided who we support and who we don't. It has nothing to do with morality or even really like consistency or who benefits us the most. It's just what we've decided to do.
Every day we decide Lithuania is our ally or not. We're allied or not. And sometimes we have big breaks with allies, right? Sometimes we have difficult moments with allies. Sometimes it goes the wrong way with allies. But an allied relationship is a long-term relationship.
It's hard for me to understand why we should ally. Like, I'm sure you believe in, like, or claim to believe in liberal human rights. Why would we ally with a nation that is committing a genocide and live streaming it?
Can I ask, literally, like this, I think about this from the mirror image way, because I do not support the things that Donald Trump is doing, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm an American. So.
But Trump's not allowed. The stuff Biden did with Israel was just as bad as what Trump's doing. Like, fundamentally, the same basic practices are taking place. The incursions into the West Bank settlements, the crackdown, the illegal expansions, the starvation, the deprivation of aid, like every. I mean, more time has passed, but it's still the same stuff.
Do I want other countries to look at America and be like, we can't stand Donald Trump, so we're going to end any longstanding relationship we have with the American people. We're going to cut off any support we give them on information sharing or intelligence sharing. Like, we are not just our elected leaders. And I think that's the thing that's been lost in the conversation.
So B'Tselem and another Israeli human rights organization joined the Global Consensus, Amnesty International, some 800 scholars. There was a piece from an Israeli scholar in the New York Times in saying this is a genocide. Do you accept, even Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday came out and said it's a genocide. Do you accept that? And if you do, I mean, what responsibility does a United States senator have? This is a nation that, you know, we send every year billions of dollars to aid that you have, you know, voted for and supported. Like, what responsibility does a United States senator have to prevent genocide and to stop genocide that we see ongoing?
We have a responsibility up till today to ensure that food is getting in.
Is it a genocide?
People don't starve. I don't know that I'd use that term.
Why?
But it is violating the law of war.
Why don't you use the term, though?
Because I think, you know, it's, to me, do I think it's ethnic cleansing, which is what I think of in genocide? I don't know if it meets that definition.
They're announcing
but didn't you say it earlier that it was ethnic cleansing? You said that they wanted to force it. I mean, this is open from the Israeli government. Like, they're saying it. Their Minister of National Security, they come out and they're like, we don't need shells. We need shells, not food. And we need to encourage migration. They're saying
you're not going to get me to support what the Israeli government is saying right now. Right. I think the point I was trying to make is it's not just about, like, we have relationships with nations over time, regardless of who their leaders are. We have really tough moments. We have...
Dude, right on the money. Yeah. To her, Israel is like a long-term realpolitik investment that has basically nothing to do with what Netanyahu's doing right now. It has nothing to do with Zionism. It's purely like it's an extension financially and militarily of American power. you know, like this business right now with Netanyahu is embarrassing and a distraction from what she thinks Israel can and should be, but she can't risk calling it explicitly a genocide or you know, anything too you know, she can't condemn it too aggressively, because if she does, that kind of suggests she has a moral obligation to oppose the state, which she doesn't want to do. You know, she might speak against Netanyahu or any individual thing that Netanyahu or his cabinet are doing right now, but against the state of Israel is just a abstract idea. It's a concept that she thinks serves us and our interests. She's a lot smarter than she seems. Oh no, she's definitely a smart woman. This is just very, 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 very difficult to get away with now. You go back a couple of decades, especially back during the Cold War, and rhetoric like this was much easier to get away with. You know, the idea of like, well, we have to support our allies against the commies. Yeah, they've got a few screws loose, but like the idea of everything is acceptable as long as it furthers our geopolitical interests makes a lot more sense in a world where people think we're fighting for our life, as opposed to a world where, I don't know, Russia is barely managing to scrap with a tiny former Soviet state that's 1/20th its size next door, and China makes all of our clothes. You know, it doesn't sell as well. It's not like supporting the Mujahideen against the, you know, Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. There's not like this pressure that you'd think would lead people to accept moral compromise. Though honestly, given how bad Netanyahu is, even during the Cold War, I think that it still would have been pretty tough to defend them. Like, Netanyahu has objectively been responsible for more Gazan deaths than Pinochet was of his people over the course of his regime, you know, in terms of direct murders, tortures over years and years. It's really bad.
Easier moments, but that doesn't, so I'm not willing to say that, like, I hate everything ever.
Sure,
into
but
the,
so
the future.
even if you accept that they're committing a genocide, you still wouldn't cut off their aid?
I think that defensive aid and offensive aid are different things, and I think at this point,
so
what
if
they're
Nazi
doing
Germany,
every single day,
if Nazi Germany said we want defensive aid, I mean, it's just you have to see where they're all weapons that are being shipped. You know, in
they're
another
not
context,
using the weapons that they're using right now. I mean, to be honest, if you look at what's happening on the ground, the military part of this conflict is, for the most part, over. What they are doing, what they are doing every single day is around aid, and they are hurting people.
They have
around the
over
delivery
1,000 people who were starving people just trying to get aid.
That is not
you know this.
That's not high intensity bombs. That's not the weapons that that we were talking about 2 years ago. It's just not. I'm sorry. Every single day, the military reports that I read, they are traditional. Like, this is a military that has a bad strategy. It is not the bombs that we were seeing 2 years ago.
It's not a military that has a bad strategy. The strategy is forced starvation and ethnic cleansing. That is their strategy, and they're accomplishing it very effectively with the full backing of the United States government, including, sadly, Democrats.
Well,
and so a couple more questions that I know you have to run. You know, I'm curious why you condemned Rashida Tlaib for using the rally chant, you know, from the river to the sea, something she said for her evokes equal rights. And you have not condemned Randy Fine, who said that Gazans should, quote, starve away, who floated that the Gaza Strip should be nuked, who called Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Soran as well, called them Muslim terrorists. Where is the concern over him?
I have no problem condemning Randy Fine, who I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know who that person is. I have no.
All right, lady, I understand you're doing the Michiganer small town such and such bit, but you work at the Capitol building. Like, come on, you forgore.
Problem condemning someone who talks like that.
Senator, we have to ask your last question because your staff is telling us. Do you think AIPAC should register as a foreign lobby?
I don't know the answer to that. I think that I know plenty of people who...
Remarkable how much striking moral clarity she manages to summon when talking about the kitchen table issues that affect us all. And yet when it comes to anything involving Israel, all of a sudden it's a whole bunch of confusion and I don't know and I ain't thought about it and so on. Remarkable, really.
Think they should. You know, I
It's
don't.
kind of a cop-out answer, don't you think?
I mean,
Yeah.
I literally, I just guess I'd have to look at the definition.
Yeah, half a million from AIPAC.
I certainly have had my tough moments with that organization, and
So you stop accepting their funding?
you got to get your facts straight. I have not been endorsed by AIPAC. I have not.
Funding, Slotkin. She said funding, which is public.
I'm sorry. I was the first Jew
You were
elected to the Senate that was not endorsed by any Jewish group. AIPAC, J Street.
You've been the recipient of their funds.
In 2018, when I first ran, people who were members, yes, but I've not been endorsed since then. And I just got to be honest, like, I think that this is where facts really matter. I've had very, very difficult conversations with my colleagues in that organization, and made a choice back in 2021. So that was the first time I was up for re-election. So I understand that there's a sort of, like, again, cornered position, but to me, like, I call balls and strikes as someone who served in the Middle East.
I have one more question I have to ask you.
Kind of a non-answer there, right? I know she's pitched a lot of non-answers, but that was a particularly non-answer. Took $500,000 from AIPAC affiliates. That's that, right? I mean, I don't know what you want. It happened. They don't do that for no reason. There's a reason why Rashida Tlaib in the same state didn't receive any money from AIPAC affiliates.
You know, we do the show. I really do my best to try to uphold, like, you know, basic human rights, Palestinian humanity, oppose the killing of innocent civilians wherever that happens. And I have to tell you,
Again, I just want to say, and I'm not trying to sound like a psychopath or anything. Y'all know I've been consistent about supporting Palestine and fucking hating Israel for a long time now. But it's not even about the morality of the genocide that's taking place. It's a simple moral and empirical barometer that discredits you on every other issue. If you can't speak with any moral clarity on Israel and Palestine, your level of personal involvement, I mean, obviously it matters because the genocide matters, but it's almost immaterial because it washes away every other position you have. It calls into question the legitimacy of everything that you have to say, every belief that you hold. It's so obvious. It's just so obvious, you know? And you know she knows, and I do not for a moment, again, I don't believe Slotkin's ideologically Zionist. She doesn't really talk like one, you know? This is just American power to her. So as a consequence, she is aware of the fact that what Israel is doing right now is horrific. And she, you know, it's just to her, and it's a mathematical calculation. Lying about this and preserving hegemony is more important than whatever kind of moral clarity you would get. Maybe she's defeatist. Maybe she thinks, oh, well, you know, we're not going to stop the MIC by protesting against this anyway. Even if we withheld aid, even if every U.S. politician withheld aid, then what? Then they would just continue committing genocide. What are we going to do? Invade Israel? I don't know what's going on in her head, but I know she knows she's lying.
like, I feel really guilty that I'm not doing enough. I think all the time about, I'm a mom, I think all the time about those moms who can't feed their babies. Mm-hmm. Those babies are starving to death. And I just want to know, like, you're in the United States.
Appeal to emotion, argument discredited, Slotkin wins. Sorry, folks.
Senator, you did vote for some of the bombs that were dropped on refugee camps. When kids have been sniped in the head, tents firebombed, people set on fire. The entire Gaza Strip turned into rubble. And now we're seeing these emaciated bodies of babies starving to death every day. And I
know what you can do.
Does it eat you up? Does it eat you up? Do you think, like, what more could I do? Do you regret any of your votes? Do you regret
let me tell you what I was working on this morning. A group of Jewish rabbis and Muslim community leaders.
Ooh, she really likes the meeting in the middle business, huh?
Came together with a proposal that we are working on just getting, like, if we can't get other aid in, at least get baby formula.
Okay, listen. The reason aid isn't getting in is because the IDF is preventing aid from getting in. That is the reason why. It's not a logistical issue. It's not a difficulty in resource procurement. It is that the government of Israel wants them to starve. That is the only reason the aid's not getting in. There is no extra hurdle, some final push you can make to get baby formula in particular in that would circumvent the processes by which the IDF is currently preventing aid from getting in. They either let it in or they don't. And if they don't, it's deliberate starvation, which is a war crime. That's not even to speak of all the aid that gets through that gets lost or destroyed or people get shot trying to access it, you know? It's this ongoing attempt to launder Israel's reputation or act as though there's some kind of like legitimate logistical consideration. Because what other people are going to say in the future, you know, people who apologize for all of this, is that people die in every war, including civilians. And that is true, right? The Allies committed war crimes too. Sure they did, right? Wars tend to involve crimes. It's something people tend to do during wars. There are obviously differences of degree, you know? Big difference between, and I'll pitch for America here, if I may. There's a big difference between a bunch of, you know, U.S. infantry moving into a village in Afghanistan. They see a kid who holds something, pulls it up, they shoot, kill the kid. It turns out the kid was just holding you know, like a toy or a stick or something. There's a trial. Involvement is alleged. You know, people are questioned, scrutinized, and then it turns out nobody's, you know, charged or you know, removed from the force or imprisoned or anything. There's a big difference between that and encircling the town and just sieging it and denying it food and water until everyone in it dies. Then you move on. You know, it's just, there are so many moral gray lines in warfare, and it past a point you understand, right? Like, what, you expect the invasion of Normandy to go off without any civilians dying? Let's be realistic here. There are so many levels between that and this. Oh, civilians die sometimes. Yeah, civilians do die sometimes. This is just a blockade of civilians. There's nothing else is going on down there, man. There's certainly not any real war happening. There's no territory being exchanged. There's no Hamas air superiority that's being contested. There's no actual, like, military goal here. It's just an open-air concentration camp. Makes you wonder what the Allies would have thought if at Auschwitz-Birkenau, instead of gas chambers, they just kind of piled folks in there, and then every time they got near the fence, they got shot. All the guards would go, whoa, 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 hold on! They were trying to escape! Would that have done it? Would all the architects of the Holocaust have gotten away with it if they could have pulled this one neat semantic trick that Nuremberg prosecutors don't want you to know about?
And nutritional supplements for children in. Let that be kind of a green light, never has a problem. No one's trying to eat baby formula other than a baby, right? That is the proposal that I've been working on all night and this morning.
I think it's okay if non-babies get food too. I think it's still a genocide if you starve everybody of a population who's above the age of like 1 or however old babies eat baby formula. But that's just my opinion, though.
So in terms of what we're trying to do, there's not a moment that goes by that this isn't something that I'm working on and something that my own community, not online, but my own community has practical things that they want to do. They're willing to raise the money. They're willing to buy the formula. They're willing to do whatever we need to do to get it shipped in. That's how I spend my time.
But you're not willing to cut off aid to Israel?
That to me is the most effective thing that I can do today.
This is a settled question. Your staff is telling us you absolutely have to go. So we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming.
Senator.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I bet they are. As Palestinian children are being starved to death, Israelis have brought their kids to blockade trucks headed to Gaza. Makes sense. People used to bring their kids over to lynchings. Of course, all this is being done with the IDF's permission as well, right? The Israeli government, like, essentially, to whatever range you want to say, permits and or enables activist civilian groups to go there and block the aid. But the IDF also say they won't allow enough aid in. So it's both. Like, the IDF says, no, instead of 600 trucks a day, it's going to be 120. And then the activists come in and they're like, well, we're going to block the 120. Yeah, they've been doing this for a while. I bet you she's going to be around for a while. And mark my words, 20 years from now, she will have always been against this. What's this TikTok I was given?
And I don't think Democratic candidates should take money from AIPAC or vote to fund military support for Israel anymore. Like, I really don't. In this government, absolutely not. And that is...
Oh, no. They've lost PodSave.
Especially includes, I think, the next Democratic nominee for president.
Things I want to see Democrats at least calling for is cutting off military assistance to Israel. It's a rich country, by the way. They don't need our $3 billion a year. And hands up, right? Barack Obama signed a 10-year MOU for $3.3 billion a year. Like, so we're part of the problem here. Let's correct it. I would like to see talk about sanctioning Israeli government officials who use genocidal rhetoric or who talk about ethnic cleansing openly. We should support a ceasefire resolution at the UN. We should demand that international press be allowed into the Gaza Strip to report on what's happening without an IDF minder. It's insane. The press still can't go into Gaza and cover what's happening. And I also think, like, there has to be a total mindset change in the Democratic
Well, there
Party.
were press in Gaza. They just all got killed. More journalists dead than like any other conflict ever per capita.
When the war ends, we are not going back to the pre-October 7th status quo, because it's not where the party is. It's not where the world is. We're not going to shovel billions a year in military aid. We're not going to veto every effort to recognize the Palestinian state at the UN. We should not take money from AIPAC. And like, I will hold out hope for better political leadership in the US and in Israel. But we have to also recognize that the Biden era hug Bibi Netanyahu strategy has to be thrown in the trash can for fucking ever.
Is the tide really turning? I do think that it is. Like, keep in mind, I know that things move slowly over on Capitol Hill, but like 8% support for Israeli military action in Gaza within Democrats, 25% support among independents. Look, people like Slotkin are motivated by deep state interests that we're never going to be fully privy to, okay? You know, shadowy conference rooms where people are smoking cigars and such. But at the end of the day, no matter how much it may seem otherwise, politics is responsive to people's interest and will. There's a reason dictators try to keep the people liking them, you know? This is unsustainable. This degree of condemnation across the board is unsustainable. There will be a shift. People like Slotkin are probably going to be the representatives for the opposite side of that shift. So I guess we'll see.